You're a bad man, Mr. Gum. Chapter 8. Some Things Happen. Now I'll tell you what, Friday O'Leary wasn't the only character in this story with a mysterious house. Nobody knew where Jake the dog lived neither. "I bet he lives on a farm and plays with all the other animals," said Jonathan Ripples, the fattest man in town, rubbing his chins. "Maybe he lives in the house of a rich man who feeds him bones made of gold," said the little girl called Peter. "It's just a guess," said Martin Laundrette, "but perhaps he lives on a farm where he plays with all the other animals." Suddenly Jonathan Ripples pounced on Martin Laundrette and sat on him until he was wheezing for breath like a broken accordion. "That'll teach you not to steal other people's ideas, you skinny rubbisher," said Jonathan Ripples. "Come on, Peter, let's go for an ice cream." In any case, Jake didn't live on a farm, and he didn't live in a rich man's house. Nobody knew where he lived except me, and I'm not telling you. "Oh, OK, I'll tell you for £1. "OK, 50p. "OK, 10p. Come on, 10p, it's not that much." "Oh, go on." "Oh, OK, you win, I'll tell you anyway." He lived in the woods up a horse chestnut tree. He had built a great big nest up there and filled it full of old leaves, which kept him warm at night. Someone had left an old radio lying around the woods, and Jake had found it one day and taken it up to his nest, even though it didn't work. He was just a dog after all. While Polly was searching for Jake, that very dog had been having a grand old time. He had larked around with the cuckoos, gone cuckoo with the larks, and bought some tin foil off a magpie for a couple of horse chestnuts. After lunch, he decided to go into town to play in a garden or two. He shimmied down the tree quicker than you can read this sentence and set off in a very happy mood. Off he went, strolling along in the sunshine with not a care in the world, barking and burping away and singing a song which went like this: "Bark, bark, 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 woof." Soon Jake came into the town. He passed old Granny's garden with its lovely soft lawn and pond full of friendly ducks. He passed the celebrated garden of the retired wrestler, Marvellous Marvin, with its rockery in the shape of wrestling. He passed Beanie McLeany's garden, where everything rhymed and the flowers grew like towers. But there was only one garden Jake fancied romping in today, and that was Mr. Gum's. On he went on his great furry legs. Soon he came to the high street. Watching secretly from behind his greasy window, Billy William laughed to think of the nasty surprise that awaited the unsuspecting hound. "It's funny," he chuckled to himself as Jake walked down the road and out of sight. At last, Jake came to the spiky fence that surrounded Mr. Gum's dirty house. It might have kept the other dogs out, but Jake was one of those magnificent beasts who know no fear, nor hesitation, nor how to scramble eggs properly. He did a sort of bouncing run, and in no time at all he was over it. Well, obviously not in no much time at all. Of course, it took some time, but not much. He landed in the garden in a shower of dirt and flowers and barked his welcoming bark to let all his garden friends know he had arrived. His welcoming bark went like this: "Bark," as opposed to his normal bark, which went like this: "Bark." The animals all recognised Jake's welcoming bark because it was so different from his normal one. Immediately, the moles popped up out of their molehills, the squirrels popped out of their squirrel holes, and the cats popped up out of their cat holes. In Mr. Gum's kitchen, the toast popped out of the toaster, but Mr. Gum saw it trying to escape and scoffed it up greedily. "What's going on?" he scowled, but then his eyes lit up horridly. "I bet it's him," he exclaimed, spitting toast everywhere. "I bet it's that flea-bag dog." Very carefully, Mr. Gum tiptoed over to the kitchen window and did secret spying with his unfriendly eyes. Outside, Jake was racing excitedly around the lawn, chasing his own tail. The caterpillars were so happy to see him that they immediately metamorphosed into butterflies. One of the caterpillars was so happy that it metamorphosed into a donkey. The moles squeaked, and the butterflies roared with pleasure. The birds came swooping out the trees, chirping like good uns, and the sun seemed to do magic tricks in the sky. Mr. Gum watched the whole scene unfold from behind the curtains, hating all the joy that the world was having. "Come on, you meddler," he said under his bad breath. "Come on and eat them hearts." Then it happened. Jake suddenly stopped barking. His nose twitched as he sniffed the scent of lemonade powder. Of course, the townsfolk were always putting out delicious treats for Jake, so he thought his luck was in. He bounded over to the plate of cow hearts in the middle of the lawn. The other animals froze in horror as the big dog opened his mouth. One of the moles let out a warning squeak, but he only got as far as the squat. It was too late. Jake's doggy jaws had already closed around a heart. Chew, chew, chew. He chewed it up. Swallow, swallow, swallow. He swallowed it down. Go for another, go for another, go for another. He went for another heart. But before he could take another bite, he gave a sad woof and fell over on his side, his big furry belly moving rapidly in and out. Suddenly the sun was covered up by a dirty grey cloud the size of Sweden. Behind the curtains, Mr. Gum was laughing like a robber.